session number 3, management of indoor or barn AMS. We are seeing a very big trend, relative, but in Australia, around interest in AMS coupled with indoor housing or barns. So still pasture-based systems is 85% of the farms that operate robots in Australia, but we're seeing a growing trend that we didn't see really probably 2 years ago around farmers considering moving to a barn because of different reasons and coupling that with a robotic dairy. So we've taken to 2 excellent farm operations in Australia, both in Victoria. So Mark Trigg is located in Bungaree, Victoria, and he runs 2 dairies, a conventional dairy and an AMS dairy. And he's been operating a robotic barn with freestall since 2016, where he commissioned 4 De Laval robots. And the project has a lot of interesting things around biogas too. So we'll hear from Mark first. We'll then move on to our second Mark in this session, Mark Dee. So Mark manages the family business, Clydevale Holsteins, near Macona North in Victoria. And he's commissioned this year a large compost barn for 500 cows with 8 Lely robots. So again, different perspective of different systems, both barns, but one with freestall, the other one with compost, both with robots. So following the same pattern that we've done before, I'll start with Mark Trigg first, giving us a 5-10 minute spiel on your operation, Mark, and then we'll move on to Mark Dee for the same thing, if that's okay.
Good. Yep. You there?
Yep.
Yep.
Can hear you
okay,
fine.
Yes, hear me? No worries. So we're 5th generation dairy farm located in Bungaree, just near Ballarat. So we're a mix of dairy potatoes. We're seed potatoes, so we've got to have a rotation of at least 5 years between potato crops. So that gives us good opportunity for our maize, wheat, Italian ryegrasses, and perennials. Our weather can go from 40 in the summer to -4 in winter time. So things had to change for us to keep existing as dairy farming. Our rotary was one of, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd in Victoria at the time, so very old, very antiquated. Laneways needed a lot of work. Winter times got very wet and muddy, so we had to do something. So our ambition was to get the cows out of the paddock, and that was to build a barn, and with robots in mind. So a lot of looking at different barns, and back 10 years ago when we first started looking, there wasn't a lot about in Australia. There was a few to see. So there's a few trips overseas to see what other countries are doing and what to do. We ended up settling on a 500 cow barn, freestall barn, with foam mattresses and robots in mind. So one thing that we sort of pride ourselves on our farm is we do a lot of the work ourselves. So we got a shed drawn up and engineer, we got the plan sent over to China, and we actually ended up importing the shed from China, which was roughly about the same price that we could buy the steel for in Australia. So it was a big saving to get that imported in. In saying that, it is still Chinese made. It's not up to Australian standards, as in, look, it's still structurally sound, it's not going to fall over, but there is just a few little things that you probably wouldn't be happy with if it was Australian. So that started, we done all the construction ourselves, stood all the frame up, helped put the roof on with the plumbers. Then the first year of having the barn, we actually bedded the cows on straw just to get us through that winter. We're going through 12 big bales of straw a week just to try and keep them clean, and that was only bedding them of a night. After that wet winter, we started concreting. We think we concreted for nearly every day for 3 months, and there was 1,100 cubic meters of concrete went into it. Then we started to install the cubicles. So cubicles with foam mattresses. We looked at other means of bedding. Sand wasn't much of an option for us. There's not a lot of sand around our area to bed them down in. Sand is good for cattle, but is hard on everything else in the barn, hard on the robots and hard on our scrapers that we scrape our lanes with. So we ended up with foam mattresses. There's chain scrapers in the laneways that scrape the manure out. They run 24 hours a day. We did look at flood wash, but we're a pretty cold climate in Bungaree, and we didn't know what we're going to do with the excess water from flood washing. We just cannot irrigate during winter time. Their paddocks are wet enough. After the first 12 months of having the cows in there, we had concrete laneways. We noticed the laneways become very slippery, and we're starting to see cows slip over and not being able to stand up. So we ended up taking all the cows out of the barn at that time because we didn't want to damage any cows, and we installed rubber mats in all the laneways. Big job, but a big benefit in it too. So highly recommend any cow traffic to have rubber mats on it from walking on. After the first 12 months of having the cows in there, we installed 4 VMSs to milk around our 200, 220 cows we find comfortable with. We work on a controlled traffic guided system through the barn. We're feed first, which we first set up. Works well, but I will like to try milk first. So I have 2 more robots that I'm trying to install at the moment, and I'll set them up with milk first. I think we'll get better cow flow with cows coming to get milk first before they go to feed. Been a few changes along the way, having to upgrade and whatnot. Just a few little one-way gates and that to help cow flow, which was well worth the effort. Foot bars we've added in since we've started, which work well. We don't have a big foot problem. It's just probably more of preventive maintenance, so they walk through that twice a day. Fans were added there after the first summer. We noticed a lot of cows haunching in the barns, just trying to get a bit of airflow. So that's definitely helped the cows get a little bit cooler through the day. Another big thing that we never had at the start was a buffer tank for when the milk tanker turns up. When the tanker used to turn up, the robots used to do a wash, all the robots do a wash, and then they would shut down for about half an hour to wait for the vat to finish. And we saw a big interruption with cow flow and milk production. So by adding that buffer tank was a big advantage and kept a more consistent milk throughout the day. A few of the problems that we've created as we've built the barn by putting all the cows in was, the first one was introducing the cows to the system, especially for the older cows not used to a freestall barn. We can find it nearly easier to train a cow to the robots than it is to the freestalls. To overcome that, we introduce our heifers in at 12 months old, leave them in a section of the barn that we've got for them, feed them in there, and within 2 to 3 weeks, we'll pick up 95% of them will be laying in the freestalls. And this, the last few we will worry about when we bring them in after they calve. Another thing that we do a lot of now is foot trimming. So because the cows aren't walking as much, their feet grow. So we do 2 foot trims throughout the year, around 180 days, and then another one at dry off. Another issue that we're finding that in there is heat detection with the freestalls, and that we don't see cows ride and show signs of heat now. So there's a lot of fixed time AI and that to try and get those cows that we can't find on heat. And I suppose with all AMR milking, that is trying to find that right cow to suit the system. Most of our cows, their temperament is quite fine. There's very rarely do we kick a cow out for bad temperament. Probably our biggest issue is high rear teats, but that's just one thing we're trying to breed out. So a lot of people ask what would we change in the system. Look, the system works, and since looking now at other systems, there's a lot of different things around, but you know, we make work with what we've got. You know, what we've got works. You make a few little changes here or there to try and help the system better. I'm in no hurry to build another system. We designed this for 500 cows. After the last 10 years, we've sort of had a few lean years. We grow most of our own fodder, so we'll supply all our own grass silage, maize silage. So that 350 cows to 400 cows is probably fine for us. So the other section in the barn, we use that for training heifers and that sort of thing. Since the cows have been in the barn, that's freed us up a lot to grow a lot more fodder for the cows. So we can grow 120 acres of maize, 120 acres of wheat. So that will supply nearly over half of our wheat supply for the year, which is a big thing. What else is there? You know, there's probably better systems out there, but if they're not run correctly, it's probably no better than a poorly system that's managed better. So yeah, you work with what you've got and yeah, make it work.
Thank you, Mark.
Anything
Really good. Thank you for that overview of the operation and yeah, insights into what you do and why you do it. We'll hold questions till the end. I again encourage all attendees to send questions. We've had some come through already, so we'll tackle them later. I'll jump now on to Mark Dee, who's also online. So Mark, as I mentioned before, manages his family business, Clydevale Holsteins, near Macona North, and he'll give us a rundown on his operation that he commissioned this year. So Mark, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey Nico, yeah, Tori and Nico, thanks for the invite to the forum. Yeah, we've sort of been on this farm since 1980. We've got 1,000 hectares. We try and grow a lot of our own feed. And we started our journey towards robots probably 5 or 6 years ago. We'd outgrown our current dairy. A lot of our shade had gone. Summer pasture was no longer viable. Trees died, didn't have enough shade. So we went down the track of doing some research into a compost barn. Very much driven by cow comfort. We like the idea of the compost way of living. Obviously, you get more cows in a freestall under that roof space, but we went with compost and started doing a lot of research. Trip to South Australia, down to Gippsland, to Hammonds and Vines in the Western District. And then I also went to Holland and Germany and did a lot of research over there, which we got a lot out of. So the design of our compost barn is just a lot of different things that we've seen and things we picked up and liked, and had a lot of meetings to get it to where it is now, and we're 6 months in now, so it's only very new. So yeah, we brought James Green into the scene, and he was instrumental in getting it happening, designed and building. As I said, driven by cow comfort. So we started getting lots of quotes together and started building in 2018, and yeah, we moved in the cows on the 18th of May, 440 cows. We moved in on one day. There was 26 people involved in startup. It was very, very full on, long days, late nights, pushing cows in. But yeah, now it's really starting to tick a lot of boxes. Yeah, we looked at lots of different things, you know, rubber matting, things like that. I think going down the path we've gone, planning was key for it. We looked at rubber matting on the feed alley, you can see there. And we got some good advice very late in the game before we were about to put it in, that the cows are better off eating and then going to the pack, sitting down and ruminating. We had a bit of rubber at the old dairy. Cows obviously like standing on rubber, but you don't want them standing there just because it's comfortable. So we got rid of that idea. Yeah, you can see the layout there. The shed is set into 4 quadrants, 2 robots per quadrant. One herd, we've separated the 2-year-olds. So the 2-year-olds are in their own herd, and we've had some big production gains there. No bullying and competing for feed. We also, we've ramped our numbers up to 500 now. So we've got that up to 500, which the shed is designed for. And that's a pretty comfortable number for as far as robot time and living space as well. The startup wasn't without its issues. We got so busy with pushing cows, and we didn't have there is outside loafing available, but at the time of startup that wasn't ready, and turned out the compost got too wet too quick, and we did have mastitis early on. And in hindsight, probably should have used more oxytocin just for letdown. Cows were just nervous, and it just came at the end of that first week. There was a bit of mastitis coming in, but we got through that. Yeah, so with the startup, we had to manage the grain, so there was no grain in the TMR on the feed face. All their concentrate was at the robot, which was on Lately's advice, just to get them help with the training process. And now we've ramped that grain right up in the TMR as well. Now that most of the cows have got the hang of it. We are still calving, so there's still fresh ones getting used to it, fresh heifers. But we're finding it's just getting easier and easier now, because a lot of those cows that were in the herd have been dried off and come back in, and you don't have to train them. They pick it up straight away when they come back in. We've had the stoker, we've got fans and soakers, so I'm actually looking forward to the hot weather. It's getting warm now, up to 36 degrees this coming Thursday, so we've got fans running and soakers on that top pipe along the feed alley. There's soakers that I've got them running for a minute every 10 minutes, and all that can be changed on the phone with the Dairy Boss program. So I think there'll be huge benefits to these cows getting out of the sun and getting that spray on there as they're ready. Had some really good preg test results, just using the transponder on the collars. Yeah, last 2 preg tests have been very successful, so happy with that. As Mark said earlier, we hoof trim basically just monthly, a management thing. We just get a monthly visit. Still early days for us, so whether we have to do the whole lot of dry off, we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, just a management thing at the moment. Production, we sort of set some goals to hit 31 litres in the herd. They're currently doing 36.5. If you take out that 2-year-old herd, the other 3 herds are doing 39.6 litres currently today. So they're really stepped up way above what we're hoping. So we're really happy with the way they are performing. Concentrate in the diet, they're on 6 kilos in the robots and another 5 kilos at the feed face and the TMR. Yeah, sitting at about 27 kilos of dry matter a day, 26, 27 kilos. So the diet is a lot of homegrown maize. We've just put this year's crop in of 75 hectares. And we grow a lot of vetch as well, do a lot of silage, and try and cut as much of our own hay, but we do buy hay as well. So it's been busy just getting hay and that sort of thing stored away with that water price, trying to get that feed storage up in case water goes through the roof next year. Yeah, so we have had a few people ask, what would you change? And the biggest issue we had was that startup, getting that compost right. We had a lot of dry manure from basically feedlotting the cows through the summer in the old system. So we had a lot of dry manure, and we mixed that with a bit of straw and old silage and mouldy silage and that sort of thing. And we brought all that in as a starting point for the compost pack. And then we added also, we bought in some pine shavings. But in hindsight, I think we would have been better off, because we were going into those cooler, damper months. We would have been better off just like outlaying a bit more cash for the pine shavings and letting the cows bring the nitrogen in, because we did get wet, and like Mark said earlier, we had to put straw down and pine shavings, anything just to keep it dry, because we couldn't get the cows outside when it was too wet. So we just had to bring dry product in just to keep that pack manageable. But now with the warmer weather, a massive difference. Fans going and that dry, warm weather. Yeah, we're really happy with the way the pack looks. So that was something, I think if we had our time again, we probably wouldn't go in and start up at winter time. Ideally, I think spring would have been better, but yeah, it's all going really well now. We just made some minor changes as we started up, a couple of gates here and there that we added in to make cow flow better around the preg testing and AI area. But as a whole, we're really happy with it, and the way the cows have responded to the system. We're getting some pretty good numbers and feedback from Holland on the production numbers. There's one cow at the moment is doing 80 litres a day, and she was only actually coming through the robot 2 times a day, and we've just sort of encouraged her that extra milk, and we got up to 80 litres. So yeah, we're really happy with it. That's probably about all I've got here, Nico. But,
Perfect, Mark. No, I think it's really a great insight, and I was just talking to Tori in the background of how exciting is it to get more insight into these farm operations. We've had the chance to visit several dairies, but yours started kind of in the middle of lockdown for all of us, so we haven't been able to head down there still, but really keen to be able to get down there soon. And yeah, I had the chance to visit Mark Trigg's operation a couple of years ago, but really keen to head back. Look, we'll probably dig into the questions. There's been some come through. The first one is, what complementary benefits do you think having AMS plus the barn brings? And Mark Trigg, if you want to turn on your mic and camera, you're more than welcome to do too. Yeah, just to hear what benefits having both of them together you think brings you as a farmer.
Yeah, probably when we first looked at barns, you're just seeing cows, well, especially with the free stalls, cows laying there dripping milk. So with the guided system with the milk and that, the cows can get milk more than twice. So we saw that a big advantage working in it, just so we're not, contaminating the beds, which we clean them twice a day. We don't put any organic matter on top, as in straw or manure or dry manure or anything like that. So we just dust them down with lime just to try and keep them dry. But that's where we saw the robots being a big advantage. We've got cows coming through milking up to 4 times a day. So, and some of them are peaking over 70 litres too. So there's some good productions there, and they love the system, being able to get milk more than twice a day.
Mark Dee, any comment to that?
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, the cows are definitely happy. You can see cows lying out flat, totally asleep. And yeah, it's just so much better for that udder if that high production cow can come through 3 times a day. Obviously, we've got cows that won't come through 3 times a day. We run our system at the moment. We collect cows in the morning, say 6 a.m. collect, and generally a lot of those cows are the same cows that you sort of know they're just going to wait. We're trying to encourage them to get the hang of it, and a lot of them are. So we collect at 6 a.m. and then another collect at 4 in the afternoon, which is a lot smaller number. But yeah, I think we're hoping that collect number will come down once they all get the hang of it. But yeah, they seem to be pretty happy with it.
There's been a comment made around kind of this perception of some consumers of cows in barns, and on the other hand, but on the other hand, we can manage the environment much better. And both of you mentioned kind of fans and water and feed and all that. On the other hand, the flexibility of the voluntary cow traffic and cows being calmer and happier and whatever. Do you have any comment to that on kind of these systems moving forward and consumer perceptions in that space?
Well, we've never seen our cows so quiet and that such good condition. There is just so many more cows that come up to you for a pat now. It's yeah, we're creating monsters. They follow you around and do whatever else. So they and then if a cow does get out for any reason, there's only a 2-inch pipe stopping them from at the feed fence. And if one gets out for any reason, she'll walk outside the barn, might lay on the grass, but she'll come back and feed. They don't run away. They're quite content. They're at the start was a bit of a different situation. Yeah, they unsure of the conditions. Yeah, I reckon they were stressed and cell count went up and mastitis. But since they've calmed down, especially old cows coming back into the system, they know the system. They're straight back into it. Yeah, milk production's straight up and off they go. So, you know, simple little things like a cow brush. It's the most used thing in the barn. They line up for it. And any visitors that come, they're amazed. You got brushes for the cows. So these little things help for people to see the system. So yeah, look, in our climate, we're very wet and cold. So especially over the last 3, 4 months, 5 months, they would have been laying in wet mud. So, and now coming in now, it's going to get hot pretty quick. You know, we're not far off Christmas. So we're going to be up into the 30s. So the benefit being out of the sun is probably nearly as much as getting them out of the wet, cold paddock. So if we didn't have the barn, we probably wouldn't be farming. I think that dairy anyway, just the winters would have killed us. So
yeah, totally agree with Mark there, Nico. When we dry cows off, we have, if you don't chase them down the lane to where they're headed, we've had cows run back to get back in the shed. They love life in the shed, and we've had people say when we right in the early part of designing it, your cows are going to be cooped up in a shed and those sort of comments, but the cows actually love getting in the shed and they don't really want to leave. And like Mark also said, cows that you would never get near in the old system walk up for a pat. The cows are all just quiet and used to people walking around. And yeah, it's all just, yeah, they seem to love the system now. And yeah, happy in barn life, really.
It's a matter of showing people, and I know both of you have been in the media and there's videos around, and it's good to show kind of what we do and why we do it and the benefits it brings to people and cows. So excellent on that point. There's been another question around, you mentioned pens in different areas of the barn. How do you group cows together, or how do those pens differ? And on the other hand, is probably more to Mark Dee. This question is, you're turning around the compost on those 4 areas. Does that create any labor issues? And are you using your own equipment?
So with the herds, we got some good feedback at a barn in Germany about stages of lactation and keeping the herds in different stages of lactation. And they said they tried it, and we've had a couple of other people say, to keep that current, you're always moving cows from one herd to the other to keep all that fairly current. And then you've got the hierarchy issues and cows getting beaten up and not competing. So we're always going to go with the 2-year-olds in one herd. And then we've had quite a few 2-year-olds calve in the last 6 months. So to keep those numbers controlled in that 2-year-old up to 125 in that pen, we just turf out the staler, aggressive 2-year-olds into the other 3 herds. And we're always just managing those herd numbers to keep all 4 at the same number. So that's the way we do it. And by the time that staler heifer goes into the cows, she's fine, she competes fine. We haven't had any issues there. As far as the compost goes, we've got a rotator and a scarifier, and we alternate that, turning the compost. It is a labour issue, but it takes about an hour and a half to do that a day. But yeah, it's something that has to be done to keep that compost working and try and get it to true compost. It's probably not true compost yet, but it is getting there now.
Perfect.
Yeah, our system with the 4 VMSs at the moment are just, yeah, they're in 2 groups, so 2 VMSs per group of cows. The next 2 that are going to come online soon, we will use that as a heifer or your 2-year-olds coming in, so we will keep them separate. But at the moment, they're all just running as one. So yeah, but we have a special needs area to the side of it, so we'll leave any fresh cows and heifers coming in, we'll leave them in the special needs until they know the system, so we can to keep an eye on them, manage them, and make sure they are getting milked at least twice a day. And once they know the system, walk into the robots, then we'll release them out with the rest of the herd, which seems to work for us.
Excellent. Then there's another question around the change to AMS in general is a big change by itself. For both of you, you've changed kind of the farming system plus, let's say, the way you milk cows. Where did you go for support? And there's been some mentions to it, but also how did you deal internally with your team in transitioning kind of the farming system, but also the way you were going to milk the cows?
Yeah, no, it's a big learning curve right at the start, and startup was, yeah, pretty labour intensive and stressful, I suppose. But we're still milking on our rotary, so all our cows that we milk are in the barn. There's roughly a bit over 200 going through the robots at the moment, and there's 100 odd down through the rotary still. So if we selected, I think we started off with about 80 of our heifers, selected good udders, good temperament, and we had real good startup. Those cows took to it really quick. And then we just slowly introduced more and more to the system. Now with the heifers coming through, like I was saying before, in the special needs, you make sure that they know the system before you let them go. So, and once those heifers do know the system, they're the first ones to come back to get milked. They just, yeah, keep walking. They're great. You don't see them again. So it's probably one downside is with the system is you don't see the good cows. They come through, they get milked, they do what they have to do. It's the ones that you got to fetch, or the ones with high cell count or something like that, so that you always got to keep an eye on.
As I once told a farmer that told me exactly that comment, Mark, around, I love to see my cows. I cannot see every cow every day. It's like, well, that's true, but on the other hand, you know they're taken care of. Everything's very systematic and the same every day. When you get to know much more of them regarding the data and everything that you collect from them, but it's true that you don't get to see them every day, twice a day or 3 times a day. Mark, a comment from your end on that one?
Yeah, we actually, yeah, the startup was full on, and we've got some pretty big cows, and we're worried about those older cows. How are we going to manhandle them into the robot, and are they going to get used to the system? But we were very surprised. The heifers sort of took care of themselves once they got the hang of it. They were fine. But the older cows, we were surprised how quickly they took to it. And yeah, just got the hang of it a lot quicker than we thought. We thought we'd be pushing those cows for a few weeks, but by the end of that first week, it was more fetching and panning up. And once you've got them panned, those priority cows that need to go to the robot go through. But yeah, we certainly had comments about how you're going to get those cows to go through it. And as far as the 440 cows that we did at startup, only one cow failed, wouldn't connect. She had teats front and back that crossed over, and we ended up sending that cow to my sister's place. But other than that one cow, all the cows connected, which was also very pleasing.
Perfect. There's another question come through of, do you manage young animals, so calves and heifers, but also springers in a barn? And if no, would you consider doing it moving forward?
All our young stock, dry cows and springers are all outside. Like I said before, we would bring our 12-month-old into the barn to introduce them to that system, to the cubicles. Yeah, I don't think we won't bring any young stock in. I think what we're doing is fine. Our calf ring, they're all in sheds until nearly wean off. If it's fine weather, we'll let them out earlier. But yeah, up until about 12 months old, especially during 12 weeks old during winter, they'll stay indoors. But other than that, they won't come into the indoors until they calve. So perhaps one day somewhere to calve them down during winter would be good. We have switched to all year round calving now. We do quieten down during the cold months of winter there for months and 6 weeks, and around Christmas time too, just to have a little bit easier time there. But other than that, we're calving pretty much all year round. So yeah, they're all outside.
As far as our springers go, well, all the young stock's outside, but we have actually built a springer barn next to the compost barn. It's not in use yet; it's still getting completed. So it'll have 60 springing cows. We've got a lowly cosmix there. We're going to set that up so the cow goes through that cosmix to get her lead feed, and we're hoping that'll be a starting point to help train them to go to the cubicle once they've calved. So it is there, it's not finished, and we're hoping that that'll work pretty well to get those springing cows out of the heat in the summer and the mud in the winter. At the moment, we're just using the old system, the old springing calving paddock, and then we just bring them around to the barn after they've calved.
Excellent. There's another question around Mark Trigg. Do you overstock the free stalls, or it's one cow per free stall? And Mark Dee, any comments around loafing space per cow?
Yeah, no, we don't go any more than one cow per free stall. Yeah, we're pushing. I think we've been sitting on 38 litres now per cow for a good while now. You know, we've got cows there that can do it a bit more, so just a little bit more management to get them up over 40 litres. But I don't know, around that 50 to 55 cows per robot works great for us. Just gives us a bit of idle time for shutdowns. We have pushed it. We've had up to 240 cows in it, but the thing is, you got very minimal idle time to try and get any maintenance done, and any breakdowns, you've got to respond straight away. So I think if we stick around that 50 to 55 cows is a lot better. And if you do get that alarm at 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't have to respond straight away. You can let it sit for a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours until you get there in the morning. And I'm quite happy to do that. So I think if we can, you know, push yield a little bit more without too much trouble, I'll prefer that than pushing numbers and overstocking the system. It just works a lot better. You're not fetching as many cows if you do over push the system. It just yeah, works a lot easier to maintain.
Yeah. As far as the living space, on the pack, our cows have got 10.5 square metres. If you include the feed alley and the robot area, it's 13.5. So, like Mark just said, we don't intend going over 500. We don't want to overcrowd it. I think in our case, the outside living is critical to making that compost work. We're already seeing now that it's warming up. A lot of cows, if you get here in the morning, 2/3 of the cows are outside. They tend to go outside at night and sit out there, which just takes the load off that compost. I don't think we would go any less square metres than what we have. We saw a really good setup in Holland, which had up to 15 to 16 square metres a cow. That's a big shed to build to give them that, but I think compost works really well if you don't overcrowd it. And we've probably got it about right, but if anything, I'd be happy with a little bit more area per cow. But as I said, that outside area is going to help our system work a lot better, I think.
Excellent. There's another question around breeding criteria. Did you change any of the breeding criteria and what you look for in the future of your herd when moving to a barn with robots?
Yeah, our cows get all our heifers get evaluated every year. So yeah, trying to pick the right traits for a good robotic cow. And now we're really emphasising on that top 25% of the herd and AIing them with sex semen to try and get that right heifer for the system, and not breeding from those bottom ones that we shouldn't be breeding from, which we're still running through the rotary. But I think with the next 2 robots coming in, we can really back off on the rotary there, even down the track, close that off, and then just have the 6 robots running. So, but at the moment we're still, because we've got the rotary, we're still got those cows, undesirable cows for robotic herd in the herd. But yeah, we're really emphasising on that top 25% now and sex semen in them, and robot ready bulls to really push that right type of heifer.
Yeah, we're very much the same, Nico. We do use quite a bit of sex semen now. One thing we've sort of been conscious probably for the last 10 years was teat length. A lot of bulls out there with short teats. We've tried to steer away from them if we can. We get the odd one, I'd have to still a bit short in the teeth, but yeah, udders is critical as far as our breeding program goes. So if you get that right, I think the robot should manage most of them. But yeah, just use a bit of sex semen. And my brother is all over the breeding. He does that for a living, so we selectively breed every cow and try and use the best bulls available when we can.
Great. And probably the last one, so we stick to time, is around any comments around milk quality or animal health?
Animal health, yeah, the condition of the cows, they're fantastic and quiet. We have 2 cell count readers on 2 of the robots, one in each group. So we have a physical cell count of each cow. So we use a lot of that for management of mastitis, which is good. D-Level also got the milk detection index, which also is a good indication to see what's going on. Yeah, we just find it work. It all works now. So yeah, milk quality. We had a fantastic cell count there a while ago. We did change a few practices with the information we got now with cell count. So we weren't blanketing dry cow. So we're selecting certain cows and teat sealing different ones. So yeah, trying that now, and yeah, getting good results out of it.
Yeah, and with our system, we just very much keep an eye on that work health checklist, which is on the T4C program. And yeah, it's very accurate picking up mastitis. So as long as we get it early, we can control those bad mastitis cows and get on top of it early. our cell count's never been better. That certainly seems to be fairly positive if we can get onto those sick cows early. And like Mark said, the cows are shiny in the coat and in good condition. Obviously, the maize silage in there gets a bit of nick on them, but yeah, they are seem to be going pretty well. And yeah, cow comfort, I think, was the big driver of our whole system, and hopefully we've got that side of it pretty right.
Excellent. Well, Mark Dee and Mark Trigg, thank you very much for your time. It's very much appreciated. Congratulations to you and your family and the team for the great work you are doing. And we'll wrap up the session with this.